Welcome to another edition of Beyond History. I'm Ken Trahan, and we'll take you beyond history as we delve deep into matters of faith and matters of creation. Today, we'll do so in very interesting fashion. We have many artifacts, art. We also have many publications, literature that we can study to help make the case for creationism. We'll do so with Dr. Michael Gerard when Beyond History continues in just a moment. Welcome to another edition of Beyond History, where we take you back through history and beyond history to show you proof and evidence of what is real as it pertains to matters of faith and creationism. And we are blessed to have Dr. Michael Gerard with us once again. And
Ken?
Dr. Gerard, great to see you once again.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure, from North Carolina, basketball country.
Oh,
right?
yeah, big basketball country.
Yeah, whether it's college, high school, pro, they just love that round ball.
Take it very seriously.
And they also took the name back. They got the Hornets back, which New
Finally.
Orleans borrowed for a few years, but now they're the Hornets, huh?
It's not going to make them play any better, I'll promise you that.
All right. They're not going to sting the opposition? Okay, well, enough of that. We're here to talk about other things and evidence, and not basketball evidence, but evidence of creationism, evidence of dinosaurs existing, evidence of dinosaurs and man existing. And when we talk about evidence, we're going to get extensively into art and literature here in this particular episode. But when you talk about evidence, talk about the fact that it's everywhere to be found in every part of the globe, throughout the universe, whether it's Asia, Africa, Antarctica, the United States, and beyond.
We find evidence of man and dinosaurs, evidence of man making statues, pictures, drawings, petroglyphs of dinosaurs, regardless of what continent you're on. It extends all over the world, every place, which says, now wait a minute, man and dinosaurs had to have coexisted. It could not have been just as one area that plotted to draw these pictures of creatures, as some evolutionists say, well, they must have seen fossil skeletons and made this up. There's a good answer to that. So many of the pictures, petroglyphs, drawings, and statues correct what scientists for many years incorrectly represented in the dinosaurs. So when we look at these ancient people, they show the dinosaurs correctly as they were, as scientists now realize. And the question then comes, well, if they only had bones, how did they know what the skin looked like? How did they know what the head looked like? How were they able to properly depict these things hundreds, thousands of years ago if they didn't see a living specimen? We find evidence on every continent of people showing dinosaurs. We find evidence of dinosaurs and man all over. So this is a strong statement that agrees with what the Bible, and if man and dinosaurs live together, Ken, that's exactly what we would expect. So once again, you start with the word of someone who knows everything, God in the Bible. You go out in the world and you look for evidence, and it's right there. Bunches of evidence all over.
When you talk about art and you talk about drawings and carvings, we've seen them virtually everywhere. We think about the Middle East frequently. You think about Egypt, and you think about carvings and stone and everything else imaginable, and pyramids, the whole deal. But realistically, you've seen these pieces of art and this work of man in terms of drawing dinosaurs all over the world.
All over the world. And again, where do you want to start? What art form do you want to start with? A lot of people like to talk about the drawings from Europe. There was a drawing by A.M. Myler, who in 1725 to 1727 went on a journey from Rome to the Middle East and all throughout the Middle East, and he drew pictures of the animals he saw, not the legends he heard, but the animals he saw. And in one of the pictures in his book, he shows, now this is 1725, a hyena and what he labeled as an Asian dragon. Now, you've got to remember, when we go to China and the Chinese speak about dragons, they do not speak of the dragons as legends. None of the peoples in the Far East spoke of the dragons as a legendary creature. They spoke of them as true creatures. There's Chinese pottery as late as 1400 AD that shows depictions of beaked dinosaurs that have details, specifically the beak, the ornate head crest, the scales on the skin, long tail, a particular stance that we now know that these dinosaurs had, where they had a walked on a metatarsal stance with 3 toes. And you look at this Chinese pottery, and it's an exact match of the fossils. Pottery dates back to 1400 AD that matches dinosaurs that were found only within the last several years. You look at this and you realize, how did these people know? There's a doctor, Dr. Casamigala, did a book, a dictionary, excuse me, on the Tehuelche people, who were the giants that lived in Patagonia. And in his dictionary, he shows a 16th century map. It's labeled Terra Magellanica, but it's actually Argentina. And in that map, he shows 2 spots where there are clearly indicated dinosaurs living there. And what's funny, the heads on the dinosaurs were exactly the way they should be, not like the fake brontosaurus head that O.C. Marsh put on his giant Apatosaurus. So back in the 16th century, these guys who were drawing these maps were being a little bit more honest than our 19th century scientists. And that's a knock, I'll admit. But again, it shows that as far back as the 1500s, these people were actually seeing these animals and drawing what they saw, because it wasn't until actually 1978 that we actually knew what the head of the Apatosaurus looked like. That's when we dropped the name Brontosaur.
Indians.
Indians.
And carvings that they have, which are still able to be seen via pictures and more today.
The American Indians, the South American Indians, the Mexican Indians. Let me talk to you real quickly about the Indians from India. When Alexander the Great invaded India, he talked about a giant dragon-like creature that lived in a cave, was very fierce, and his soldiers refused to go near it. We've had a Russian missionary give a similar description of a Chinese animal that dates to the 19th century, to the 20th century during the Russo-Japanese War. We've had these descriptions over and over, and if you look at the artifacts they made, like I said, it's amazing. There's a Mesopotamian cylinder seal, 3300 BC. So you said, Doc, how old can you? Well, I can go back 5,300 years. Mesopotamian cylinder seal, which is amazing in the detail. It shows an Apatosaurus, some type of sauropod type of dinosaur with massive structure, muscular neck, long necks, and a head structure that we know was on some of the sauropods. Where in 3300 BC did these people get this much information about the soft structures of the dinosaur? If what they were doing was taking it from fossils, they would have never seen these soft structures. But again, what they drew was accurate to what we now know that dinosaurs look like. In America, the American Indians were very prolific with drawing petroglyphs especially. Some of them are very detailed. We talked about the petroglyph at Natural Bridges, Utah. One of the most famous petroglyphs is one that they call Puff the Magic Dragon, that's found in Arizona, Wupatki National Park, and it shows a fire-breathing dragon. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, isn't that more legend? Well, not really, because the Bible in Job chapter 41, I believe it is, talks about an animal, must have been a dinosaur, gigantic, that breathes fire. So here we are. The Indians didn't have a copy of the Bible. I know they didn't have a copy of Job, at least. And yet, the Bible and what these Indians are describing agrees perfectly. And again, the legend of fire-breathing dragons in Europe, in China, in India, in Africa, in the Americas. So we look for the evidence, and it fits perfectly.
Puff lives by the sea, doesn't he?
He lives by the sea, but here he was in the desert. Dr. Don Patton, and we've talked about Dr. Patton, one of my heroes, just incredible. I have a picture in my collection of Dr. Patton standing in, I believe it's in Fremont, it was the Fremont Indians in Montrose, Colorado. There was a report that there was a petroglyph of a Triceratops. Should have been extinct over 60 million years ago. Dr. Patton went out there, and sure enough, you not only have the Triceratops, but you have Indians surrounding him. Well, that's pretty hard to explain away. It's at least several hundred years ago. The Fremont Indians were more or less contemporary with the Anasazi. They extend all the way back to maybe 100 BC to 1200 AD. That long ago, you had Indians drawing pictures of a Triceratops. The evolutionist says that can't be. It must be together. It's not faked. It shows weathering signs that dates at least several hundred years old. Same thing with Puff the Magic Dragon. We have these evidences of extreme age in rock art preserved here in the United States that show dinosaurs.
Intriguing, and we're going to delve into it more, talk about the images we know now, as well as literature pertaining to this subject as we continue with Beyond History in just a moment. Ken Trahan with Dr. Michael Gerard as Beyond History continues and talking about dinosaurs, art, literature. Now, as a young person, on my mantle above my bed, and I shared a bedroom with my brother, and on the mantle, and he was equally the collector that I was, we had as many as 20 to 25 different dinosaurs, toy dinosaurs, that would sit there. By day, they were ominous, but not threatening in any way, shape, or form. By night, all of a sudden with the lights off, you got these big shadows and you got these unbelievable images in your mind, taking you back to a time and a place. How accurate are the depictions of the toys that we see of dinosaurs that young people purvey?
Well, Ken, I'll take two examples to tell you. When you and I were, well, when I was a young man, I saw dinosaurs. No, I'm teasing, I'm old. But when I was a young man, the depiction of the brontosaur.
You look good for your age, by the way. So I'm just saying, yeah, I couldn't help but interject.
The picture of the brontosaur that we had were inaccurate. We now know that. Again, 1978, finally the Carnegie Museum said, well, let's just put the right head on the dinosaur. It's like, gosh, come on, guys, catch up. This is science. This is what people are coming here to study. So our brontosaur was wrong. We now know that the iguanodon was wrong. And do you know who corrected the iguanodon? The Acambaro figurines that date back over 1,000 years ago in Mexico. Now, you've got over 37,000 figures, clay figures that have been dug out of the ground. There's probably a lot more, and 2,600 of them are of dinosaurs. Well, for a long time, the people criticized what looked like an iguanodon from the Acambaro collection. As the picture of the iguanodon changed from the 19th century to early 20th century to late 20th century to the 21st century, we realized, oh my goodness, 1,000 years ago, these people in Mexico, whoever made the Acambaro figurines, they got it right. They showed an accurate picture of an iguanodon. If you had an ankylosaurus, which I remember as a child, I had a brown ankylosaurus. It was my favorite dinosaur because it had little spikes on it and you could beat with it. I remember that was my favorite. Well, again, I hate to tell you, it was wrong. It was the wrong, unless you had one that was from the Acambaro collection. Again, those clay figurines over 1,000 years ago, whoever made those made them accurately. And we now know that that's what the dinosaur looked like. What's being sold today, I was with a friend's grandson yesterday, and he's 4, and he got a brand new dinosaur. I'm not that good at identifying all the dinosaurs, but I would assume that they're more accurate now, but I really don't know if they're doing that. I would hope, and I'm glad, that scientists are finally catching up, but what they're not doing is saying, wait a minute, we had examples over 1,000 years ago that showed that these things were anatomically accurate. These had to be made by folks that saw them and that have corrected what we believed about them, and therefore, if they saw them, then man and dinosaurs lived together. That's the take-home story from that, and that's the take-home story from all of us who had dinosaurs as a youth. Many of them were wrong. They've been corrected, but they were correct over 1,000 years ago. You know, it's a great example and a great testimony, so don't throw your dinosaurs away. It's a great testimony how people that lived long before we did saw the dinosaurs and corrected our scientists.
Everyone seems to be familiar with Tyrannosaurus and Brontosaurus, but I was a Triceratops guy. I kind of liked him, okay? He was big in my house.
Yeah, you know, he wasn't my favorite, but he was a great guy. We've now discovered that there's numerous different types of Triceratops, and what's interesting, again, when you look at one particular piece of, and this is the greatest piece of evidence, the two gentlemen that have done the most work on the Ica stones from Ica, Peru, are Dr. Dennis Swift and Dr. Don Patton. And Dr. Swift has documented that these are absolutely genuine. There are fake stones. The fake stones are very easy to identify, but Dr. Swift has done a definitive research and has shut the mouth of everybody in this. But on these Ica stones, it shows different types of Triceratops. And around the world, we've found different types of Triceratops in paintings, figurines, and on the Ica stones. Well, that was a point of criticism for the evolutionist when he only had a few fossils, but now that he's got a lot more fossils, it's like, oh my goodness, there really are different types of Triceratops, and they do match with these early figurines. How did they know? I don't buy into the space aliens coming here and saying, look, we took a photograph 65 million years ago so that you can make an accurate depiction. No, that doesn't wash. It's that these people saw these figures. And it's interesting, the Ica stones especially fascinate me. Dr. Cabrera, I think, has over 30,000 stones. Some of them, are several hundred pounds that have been found in tombs. A recent find in southern Peru, Toro Muerto, they found over 30,000 figurines. 2,600 of them are dinosaurs. So people who said, well, wait a minute, those were caught. No. These were found in situ in the tombs. So we know that they're ancient. 1,000, 2,000 years old. We keep finding these stones of dinosaurs. Several of the stones show people fighting dinosaurs. Some of them show dinosaurs biting man. And I was speaking with someone one day, and I showed him the picture, and he said, wow. He said, well, what happened to the dinosaurs? I said, well, look, they're attacking people. I said, so I guess they were just mean, and he tasted like chicken. People had to get rid of these things, and you hear accounts of that, about how people attack that. We see these depictions. One of my favorite petroglyphs, and I got to mention it for a reason, is in the Grand Canyon. It was discovered in 1885, again in 1886, documented in 1924 by a gentleman by the name of Samuel Hubbard. Samuel Hubbard went on a Grand Canyon tour in 1885, and his guide said, listen, would you like to see a petrified giant Indian? And Sam Hubbard said, sure, let's go look at it. So they trekked and they found it. He said it was very difficult, but sure enough, they found this petrified Indian face down 12 feet tall. The Indian guide that took him also showed him footprints of what had to be a giant, 20-inch long footprints, left-right sequence. Well, Hubbard was fascinated. He came back, he took some photographs, he reported this, and he was ridiculed to shame. People called him every ugly name. And when he came, finally, he kept trying to convince people, trying to get back there. A very wealthy oil man by the name of Doheny sponsored him and the world's foremost dinosaur expert at the time, who used to be affiliated with the Carnegie Museum and later with the Natural History Museum in America. I'm trying to think of his name, Charles Gilmore. So he and Gilmore and Doheny go out there and they document the petrified man. They document giant footprints next to dinosaur footprints. It's in Doheny's book. It's been published since 1924. And they documented what is obviously a dinosaur, I believe in Edmontosaurus, on one of the walls. It's a petroglyph drawn by the Anasazi, 150 BC to 1200 AD. No question about it. It's an Edmontosaurus documented. And in another separate part, there's a dinosaur eating a man. So you've got all of this evidence and such a wealth of evidence. And when people say, well, why don't we see more of this? Doheny published a book and he couldn't give it away. People don't want to see the evidence. They don't want to know what's going on. The interesting thing about Doheny, Charles Gilmore, Dr. Gilmore, who accompanied him, committed evolutionist, as was Hubbard, came away saying, hey, evolution, yes or no, but man did live with dinosaurs. Wouldn't admit the logical conclusion, but said there's no question about it. These petroglyphs show beyond any shadow of a doubt that man lived with dinosaurs. And oh, by the way, there were giants in those days. And that's a whole nother lecture, a whole thing that I'm just starting to read up on that's fascinating. And these giants seem to have been very well known as far back as the 16th century, in South America in particular.
It's remarkable.
Fascinating. The evidence is there, but you're not going to see it in National Geographic. This is why I tell people when I present the evidence and I say, oh, they say, wow, let's get it on TV. Yes, let's do that. But also take the time, get the information, get in contact with Dr. Swift, get in contact with Dr. Patton, get in touch with Dr. Ball at the Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. Get their evidence and share it with people, because so much of this, Ken, is going to depend upon us sharing it with people. We're going to be censored out of the popular media, or it's going to be that space aliens came and brought us this.
When we return to put a wrap on this, we'll talk about the best evidence of dinosaurs right here in the United States, right here on Beyond History. Beyond History continues with Dr. Michael Gerard. I'm Ken Trahan. And Dr. Gerard, as we conclude today, what is the best evidence of dinosaurs right here in the United States?
In the United States, Ken, I would have to say it's the petroglyphs that we discussed, especially the ones in the Grand Canyon that Dr. Hubbard and Dr. Doheny,
Doheny.
that they looked at and that they documented. In the United States, there's no better evidence than that, beyond any shadow of a doubt, especially because it's dinosaurs drawn by man. Another great piece of evidence is a photograph taken in the 1950s in Texas of a rancher who shot a pteranodon. Now, there's been reports of flying pterodactyls and pteranodon-type dinosaurs throughout North America, Central America, and South America, and there's an actual photograph of this, which I've never seen. You have to look for it to find it. The next two best pieces of evidence, and these are beyond any shadow of a doubt, and they deserve just a whole show with the experts, would be the Ica stones from Peru and the figurines from Acambaro in Mexico.
Easy for him to say. And Dr. Gerard, such a pleasure.
Thank
God
you.
bless you,
Yes,
my
sir.
friend. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Beyond History. Tune in next time for another outstanding edition of Beyond History. Until then, for Dr. Gerard, I'm Ken Trahan. May God bless you.